Senator Lindsey Graham is, of course, running for president, so he sat down for an interview with Jake Tapper at some kind of live event. And Medea from Code Pink, I think her last name is Benjamin. She's like the leader or the head of Code Pink. She asked Lindsey a bunch of different questions. Now, the way she does it, I admit, is abrasive. But I want you to try your best to ignore how annoying her style is and the fact that she's basically filibustering here, and focus more on the substance of what she's saying. And then check out Lindsey Graham's response.
Hi, my name is Medea Benjamin. I'm with the group Code Pink. I'm just horrified by your foreign policy because it's a prescription for endless war. And, of course, that's why you feel you need this huge military budget, because you want to keep us in these wars. I thought it was interesting that he said that voting for the Iraq war was a bad idea. That's fabulous. I wonder if you will admit that it was the Iraq war that led to ISIL, and also recognize that your support for overthrowing Gaddafi led to the chaos that's in Libya and is spreading all over today. It was also interesting to hear you say something critical about Saudi Arabia, because I never hear the senator criticizing Saudi Arabia. I wonder if you'd speak out more about the beheadings that Saudi does in the public squares, sentencing people to 10 years and 1,000 lashes because they blog something that the Saudi government doesn't like. You talk about Iran's intervention overseas, but will you talk about Saudi's intervention? Yeah, there's questions. Saudi's intervention in crushing the Arab Spring in Bahrain. How about that? And what about the Saudis' killing of thousands of people in Yemen now? You also talk about the Arab Spring, but I don't hear you talk about Egypt, the important home of the Arab Spring. And the question here on Egypt is, what about the Sisi regime and the U.S. continuing to support this very repressive Sisi regime? And I have one last thing, which is about Israel. If you want to talk about repression, will you talk about Israel's repression of the Palestinians, which happens on an every single day basis? Today is the one-year anniversary of the invasion of Gaza. Will you say something about the over 2,000 people killed in Gaza by the Israelis, including 551 children? Medea, will you also say something about the continued settlements? And I have one last question, which is about the nuclear... Be quiet. The one last question is about, if this is an important one, it's about Israel's nuclear weapons. I have a question, be respectful of me. I have a question for the senator. Does Israel have nuclear weapons? How many do they have? Should Israel be forced to join?
All right, here we go. Nah, come on.
Okay.
All right, here we go. So I'm going to put her down as undecided. This is your country as much as mine. You've got a right to every opinion you've expressed, right? I couldn't disagree with you more. I think people like you make the world incredibly dangerous. I think people like you are radical Islam's best hope.
Total cop-out. Total sidestep of every single issue that she brought up. Now, like I was saying before the clip, I get it. It was annoying. The way she went about doing what she did and saying what she said, it was annoying. And at the end, I found it kind of funny when she's like, "Be respectful of me." It's like, well, are you being respectful of them? Because, I mean, you kept going on and on after you said like one last thing a bunch of different times. And I found Jake Tapper's face was probably my favorite part of the entire clip. The entire time he's like looking like he's in pain, like, oh Medea, just please stop. And they gave her enough time, in my opinion. I mean, it really was clear that she was filibustering. But putting aside the style of what she did, because I disagree with the style of it, because you lost the crowd, okay? But putting that aside, the substance of what she said was absolutely correct. In fact, I don't know how you could argue against the substance. Now, Lindsey Graham tried, but if you notice here, he had to be dismissive because he couldn't address each point head on, so what does he do? He goes, oh, you're radical Islam's best friend. Really, dude? No, think about how profoundly stupid a thing that is to say. She just went on. I jotted down everything she spoke about. So the invasion of Iraq led to the destabilization of Iraq, led to ISIS filling the power vacuum because you pissed off the entire Sunni population with de-Ba'athifying Saddam's government. So she spoke about how that's a bad thing now that ISIS is on the rise. She said that the chaos was brought about by our intervention, but there is chaos there, and ISIS is in control in many areas. So she's against ISIS, obviously. He's like, you're radical Islam's best friend. Then why is she fucking speaking about ISIS in the most negative light possible? Because she's not. She doesn't want there to be people like ISIS having more control. That's why she's confronting you with these issues. She thinks our foreign policy is creating more people like ISIS, not less, Lindsey. And then she says, well, I mean, U.S. intervention also helped foster the chaos in Libya. Totally true. Now, I get it that eventually Gaddafi was going to be overthrown anyway, and he was a brutal and vicious dictator, and he needed to be overthrown. But I don't think the U.S. should get involved and start bombing and take part in it. I think that was a negative thing. Okay, I wasn't in favor of that. And she's saying, look, that helped destabilize it. Whether or not you agree with Gaddafi, that helped destabilize it, and now there's more radical Islamists in Libya. Totally true. Totally true. And again, she's saying it like, isn't it bad that there are more radical Islamists in Libya? But what's Lindsey Graham's response? Oh, you love radical Islam. Then why is she speaking about ISIS and the radical Islamists in Libya in a negative light? Then she goes crystal clear. Do you want to say something about the Sharia law in Saudi Arabia where they're beheading people for fucking sorcery and witchcraft and atheism and all types of made up shit? You want to talk about how they're whipping atheist bloggers, a clear repression of free speech and a violation of human rights. You want to talk about how they're bombing Yemen and killing civilians in Yemen. You want to talk about how they're getting involved all over the place and taking away people's freedoms. She's clearly against the Sharia Wahhabist regime, the Salafist regime in Saudi Arabia. And what's Lindsey Graham's response? Oh, you love radical Islam. Then why is it that every single point she made was about how our terrible foreign policy is helping to make radical Islam more popular, which she is against. She doesn't want it to be more popular. So what you're doing is you're sidestepping the issue and you're straw-manning your opponent because you can't actually win in a debate of ideas because you're wrong and she is right. So you straw-man, oh, you must like radical Islam. Everything she's saying is anti-radical Islam, you dipshit. And then she speaks about how in Egypt we're supporting Sisi. Sisi, like him or hate him, he has done a violent crackdown and he's very oppressive of the people of Egypt, including banning the Muslim Brotherhood and killing them in street protests oftentimes, that when they're peaceful. Again, she's clearly against dictatorship, she's against oppression, and she's against radical Islam, but you strawman her as being pro-radical Islam. And then naturally, oh, you said anything against the people of Israel? Anything. Well, you must be an anti-Semite. You must love radical Islam. Come on, man. See, you want to talk about honest debate? This is not an honest conversation. This is not an honest debate. This is you caricaturing, stereotyping, and strawmanning everything she said, and then arguing against that. I'm going to pretend you believe X, and then I'll argue against X. You love radical Islam, so you're a bad person. I dismiss you. Next. No, but see, what that shows is that you're a stupid person, Lindsey. What that shows is that you can't handle the nuance, you can't handle the facts that she's putting forward, so you have to strawman her and attack the strawman because, God forbid, you attack the issue dead on. Now, to be fair to Lindsey Graham, he goes on there to rant against, to say, I don't buy any of that, and the main problem is the religion. And look, he's half right on that. As I've said many times on the show, of course, if you want to talk about religious extremism and religious violence, by definition, religion is a huge part of it. There's no doubt about that. So, Lindsey, you're half right when you want to blame a fundamentalist interpretation of religion, of course. But there's another aspect to it as well, which is, are our policies helping the problem or hurting the problem? And Medea's right when she says it's hurting and you're exacerbating the very thing that you say you want to stop. Okay? But again, you can't take her point for what it is, because it's undeniable, so you strawman her and then argue against the strawman. If you're not ready to have a debate and beat Medea Benjamin of Code Pink, you're certainly not ready to be president of the United States of America.